This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. Happy that you're with us tonight from the Brickyard as we get set to go racing for the 23rd and final time in a regular season here on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, up in the broadcast booth with you this evening. Our producer is Randy Cheneth, bringing us to you. And Justin, we come off of our final off week for this campaign. We get set for 11 straight weeks of full throttle action on Monday nights, but it all picks back up tonight, the final race before we know our 16-driver playoff grid.
Yes, indeed. The pressure is on for a few different drivers. The top 13 position, the top 12 rather, have already locked themselves into the postseason. However, there's still the chance for drivers like Dylan C. Jones, Andrew T. Jones, Anthony Fredericks, and Scott McClendon to all drop out of the postseason contention bubble, because it is tight between Jeremy Rittenberg just behind that in 17th. 1 point separates McClendon and Rittenberg heading into tonight's race.
And if you've been with us for the last couple of weeks, Dylan Jones has been one of those talking points, making a couple of good results in a row. A race win 3 weeks ago at Bristol brought him to the cut line. That gave him 16th. And a good result 2 weeks ago at Darlington has him in that 13th position. Justin, you talk about the bubble. Let's get into specifics, as these drivers right now are in their 2-lap single car qualifying session. So Dylan Jones comes into tonight 13th. That sounds a lot better, but it is not a big margin. It is only +6 to the cut line. Below Jones, you'll find Andrew T. Jones in 14th. He's up 5. Anthony Fredericks is 15th in the championship. He is just 1 single point ahead of Scott McClendon, who is magic number 16 this evening. Jeremy Rittenberg is going to be a driver that I suspect we're going to be talking a lot about tonight. He is 1 point behind in 17th position. It is a little bit of a tougher ladder to climb for Shane Parrish, who's 18th. He is 16 points back, so he'll need some of the cars in front of him to have issues. But Justin, those first 5, Jones, Fredericks, McClendon, and Rittenberg, you got 5 drivers. 4 of them get a punch a ticket into the championship this evening, and they are only separated by a total of 7 points.
That means one thing, Evan. No mistakes from any of those drivers. If they want to make the postseason, they can't afford to get into any incidents, can't afford to hit the walls in the short chutes, can't afford to hit the walls in the corner exits, can't afford to have any pit mistakes, because one accident by any of those drivers could throw them right out of the postseason if they DNF or end up in the back part of the field with severe damage. So, in other words, no mistakes or else you were done.
I'm not sure how good of a benchmark yesterday's race was, but when you want to talk about Indianapolis and, of course, the schedule now, we've had a couple of weeks that didn't line up. It is the Monster Energy Cup Series schedule this point on, so, of course, first time in this Full Throttle Cup Series powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, Justin, that we are seeing Indianapolis be the cut race with this 2019 package. It is a very different drive around the Brickyard than it has been in years past. We've seen this package drive a lot more according to design, maybe, on this surface, with cars being able to stick closer together than what you see in real life, with a little bit more of the aero push coming into a factor. So it'll be a fun race. 80 laps, not a stroll in the park by any means, but it is not a long endurance race, so it'll be fun to see what these drivers could get tonight from Indianapolis. As, of course, not only is all of this on the line, but when you look outside of that group of 5 cars or so near the bubble, you just want to win the Brickyard.
Yes, indeed, it's a prestigious racetrack to come away with the checker flag with more than 100+ years of history. It brings a lot of drivers' pride to take the checker flag at this prestigious racetrack, but I think, Evan, it's time to find out how they're lined up for the Brickyard 80.
We're ready, so let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid and Jason Jacoby's fastest of them all. His 49.775, by far and large the fastest time in a qualifying session, and he will bring us to the green flag this evening, joined on the outside of the front row by the number 23 Chevrolet of Jeremy E. Miller. Daniel Eberhardt will start in 3rd position in his RealSimRacing Ford Mustang. Andrew Frenage, a 10-time winner this season, a career best for him, starts in 4th position, and behind them you'll find Kyle Kamer in 5th.
Thomas J. George will start in P number 6 tonight, with Brett McBride on the inside of row number 4. He'll start alongside Blake O'Connell in the Vegas Golden Knights machine. Rounding up the top 10, Jeremy Basemore's number 1 machine with Scott Brotherton, looking to have a good run today, rounding up the top 10.
Continuing on through the times of the qualifying session, Caleb Weekly will start tonight in 11th position, so he'll see Eric Stanford to the outside of row number 6 in P12. Along through Anthony Fredericks is 13th position, Scott McClendon behind there in the number 14 spot, and Shane Parrish good enough to be just about halfway through P15.
Todd Novosad starts off in 16th. Of course, remember, came onto the scene for that win at Talladega earlier this year. Brian Chambliss will start in 17th, with David Washington all the way in 18th, an uncharacteristic qualifying run for him. Sean Kalis is in 19th, with Andrew T. Jones, a driver who was in the Final 4 in 2018, rounding up the top 20.
One other car takes the time to qualifying. That will be Tom Morano in the 42. The rest of these cars based on provisionals, and there are some very critical championship names back here, including Dylan C. Jones, who will start from 22nd on the grid this evening. Skylar Schauka for 23rd. Jonathan Cadell in the number 24 spot. And as the field begins to roll, another driver towards that cutoff that we talked about, Jeremy Rittenberg, is one single point out of a playoff spot, but he's got work to do. He will start P26. Kurt Rittenberg starting in 27th, and Matt Miller all the way at the back in 28th position. That'll be a look top to bottom, a LSR TV starting grid. Let's talk more about this virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Justin. Of course, the 2.5-mile rectangular oval is what they refer to it as. Banking in the corners just at a very slight 9.2 degrees is what has made this racetrack characteristically very sensitive and difficult to get around. But again, with this package, that right foot's going to stay down early on.
Yes, indeed. You have to carry a lot of momentum and speed around this racetrack, and the main thing to think about too is while doing so, you have to also manage the tires, because if you burn, say, that right front tire up, you'll get very tight with this package and lose that ability to carry speed and momentum and drop down the running order. So essentially, it drives a lot more different, yes, in terms of how you enter the corners and come off the track, off the exits. But for a lot of these drivers, some of the fundamentals are the same. Tire wear is key, fall off is going to be critical, and passing could be very difficult, especially if you burn up your equipment way too early or end up on the top line for more than a lap.
We'll do our best to keep you posted on those bubble drivers as the night goes on. There is no win and you're in, so if you've got a little bit left in the tank, you got to give it for 80 more laps as we get set to find out our playoff grid of 16 cars. The pace cars down and in. As always, happy that you're with us at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network as we say, let's go racing from the Brickyard. Green flag in the air for round 23.
And it looks like the back part of the field didn't get a good start, but a great job by Jacoby and Daniel Eberhardt to get a bit lined up and ready. But as we've seen with this package, it's hard to keep the lead as the leader. and we already see drivers fighting with some tightness. Kamer nearly pushed up into his own teammate.
He got way up close to the 88 car, and the 5 actually peeked out of the inside as McBride wanted to make a move in front of them. Miller crossed it over to the inside. He nearly took the nose off of Everhart's Ford as he goes for the race lead to the inside of Jason Jacoby. So first time down that long back straightaway, now 3 wide for the race lead with the 3-car back up top. Miller in the middle, Everhart diving to the inside, and Jacoby, your pole sitter, will hang on to lead lap number 1. These drivers going at it and using the draft right from the get-go. And this is going to be something that you'll see on any race starts tonight, but it is going to be more difficult as it goes on. So no surprise, drivers want a lot early. Here comes the 5 again to the inside. McBride, he wants to pick up a 3rd spot from the start of the race. He's tight, though, and can't get by the 88 car outside.
Yeah, it's important, especially in the corners, to get to the bottom of the racetrack, because if you stay up there too long, you end up burning up your tires for the rest of the run. It's been talked about even by some peak drivers in terms of this racetrack with the tire model on the Cup cars at the moment. But the thing is, you're going to probably see a lot of more give and take than you're used to with this package just past a couple laps in to make sure these drivers have the preferred entry to get down to the white line by the apex every single time.
You can see as they snake high and low on these long straightaways as the lead driver tries to break the draft and everybody else behind him desperately stays in line. Miller not the best exit in a quarter number 1, so the 9 car in the short chute will peak low. Everhart clearing off of the turn. And after at one point being 3 wide for the race lead, he actually gains his 1st spot. Everhart to 2nd. Miller's right there on the bumper, though, so not sure how long this will last. And by the time they get back down into 3, he's got the momentum to give it back to him. 90 cars saw that one and didn't want to pinch him down, so he'll let him go. And it'll be no change for 1st and 2nd and 3rd. They'll get a little bit of separation. P5 or 6 on the back, Justin's where you want to look. That 5-car McBride, not a good exit at a turn number 4, and here comes the cavalry. The 8 of Kamer, here comes O'Connell, Bazemore, and more, all going to rocket by on the outside.
That's because if you look at the right front, I think he actually might have tapped the wall at one point these past couple of laps. That is a lot of aero damage that will affect his ability to not just have straight line speed, but his ability to suck up in the draft. 3rd place is also scraped the wall and is causing a lot of bunching up. Eberhardt's now got some right side damage.
If Fernina is going to get by, well, the Donna Thomas George got a 2-fer. He was going for a pass on the 88 car as that 90 got into the fence. So Everhart drops back behind him, and Thomas George is going to rocket from 5th to 3rd in a blink of an eye. Not safe from the 10-time race winner. We'll see the 88 car again follow him way down to the pit wall, down the front straightaway. We'll see if it'll be a setup for a pass for the race lead in this one, but it is not going to be the case this time through. And George is the big winner in all of that as Everhart now trying to hold off Kamer and O'Connell. It's only going to get more and more important as the run goes on, but we've already seen a couple of instances of turn 2, turn 4, those corner exits hurting drivers. If you can't carry that momentum, it is a long way to salvation to get down to the next quarter and get back in it.
Yeah, and you have to remember, too, you're going to have to deal with a lot of that damage the rest of the run if you get it. And for that rest of the run, you're going to be basically a sitting duck and drop down the order with that lack of speed from the lack of aerodynamics on that fender. So you have to hope if your drivers like McBride now and Everhart potentially, while he's on the minority side or the minor damage side, that you get a caution so you can get it all fixed and then charge back up to the field on a restart.
Bazemore pushing the 5 and McBride that time into turn 1. I think he might have caught the fence. It checked him up on entry. It's not going to be that bad. The 10 car now of Weekly overdrives the exit, so Bazemore right back down to the inside, takes that position back, and they'll continue to play musical chairs for 8th position on back. That is about a 3-second interval to race leader Jason Jacoby, who is showing shades of Kevin Harvick late, pulling away to a 7/10 of a second advantage over Jeremy Miller, who's still scored in 2nd position, hotly contested by Andrew Freenage, Thomas George, Daniel Eberhardt continuing through third, fourth, and fifth position. A couple of cars also did start from pit road as we watch a battle back here at about the number 10 spot. Caleb Weekly and some other cars doing a battle. Tom Morano's actually already a lap down. His night may be done early, but Shane Parrish started from pit road. He's a half a lap behind all these cars. That's why the 18 is way back in 25th.
Indeed, but look who's in 11th spot in that battle as well. That's one of the drivers that we were discussing in the postseason window on the bubble, Scott McClendon. He's doing what he needs to do now.
Oh, the one car! Right in front of him, it's Jeremy Bazemore. He's going to go hard into the tires on the inside at turn number 2. No caution, so we will stay green as Bazemore lost it right in front of that battle we were talking about. You'll get a look at the LSR TV replay, just too hard out of the corner, smacks the outside wall right across the nose of McClendon, who barely gets away from that one, and then Bazemore finds the tires there with a hard hit. Somehow, though, we stay green. The one car's got the front end of that race car completely torn off.
That was nearly the championship chances for McClendon out the window there with how close it was. Again, Bazemore, as you mentioned, pushed up tight off that edge of the safer barrier, and then hit hard on the tire barriers on the inside where we've seen Brad Keselowski sit on top of that wire wall on Sunday. So that was major luck for McClendon in a situation where essentially not only did he need it, but he hasn't really had too much of it in the past few weeks or so where he's gotten into some big incidents in the 51 car.
It was a foot or two difference from still being in this race and actually gaining a position with the car in front of you wrecking out and possibly ending up on the hook and seeing your championship hopes dwindle as these laps wind down. A very competitive start though early on at Indianapolis. Of course, that 3 wide for the race lead on the opening lap, and Jason Jacoby's race lead has totally evaporated. It had nearly grown to a second, but Andrew Freenage has reeled him right back in. Only 2 car lengths between those cars in the short chute. We'll see if the 88 wants to make a play down the back straightaway as he looks low.
Yeah, you can see right now Miller's starting to go back, and I'm honestly not a bit surprised because remember, he was shuffling a lot with Eberhardt, and the more you did those kind of moves, the more you do those kind of moves in the short run, I should say, the more you burn up the tires, and I think that's factoring in a little bit for a couple of tenths a lap now lost in terms of how much grip there is. But Andrew Freenage, I'm not surprised he's been able to reel in Jacoby like this. He has been one of the fastest cars in the race, even with the traffic, and it looks like he's got a run, Evan.
It's a small one, but to get the nose to the inside, and let's see if the inside positioning helps him into the corner. Jacoby's not going to fight him over. No, he will. He'll stay there. And the 88, I think, thought also that the 3 was letting him go. Jacoby comes right back topside and takes it away after Freenage started to stroll into the inside, had it out of the throttle, and just like that, Jacoby finds himself in front once again. And down the back straightaway, look how far he goes all the way to the inside. I know that we've been saying that everybody is snaking on these straightaways. I don't know if everybody's going down to the grass, but even when he was over a second out to the race lead, he would go right down to the grass at the back straightaway and also right up against the pit wall on the front straightaway. So the 3 cars really committed to trying to cut that draft off. We'll see if he goes back down to the inside. Yes, he does. He's going to go right up next to it. And because Freenage feels like he's in striking distance, he'll follow him and now jump back up to the outside to set himself up for turn number 1. Half a car length short that time on the attempt.
Yeah, Jacoby's trying as hard as he can to break up the slipstream and eliminate any sort of chance of Freenage having a bit more speed coming off that back end, because again, that spoiler at the back end cuts through the air and really slows you on down if you're the lead car. But right now, I think Freenage is still in a good position because the more Jacoby has to try and defend from that high side, as we've seen him a couple laps ago, the more that he's going to light up his tires. I don't know how long Jacoby can hold on and fight the way he's trying to right now.
We mentioned Tom Morano to the garage. His night is done. Jeremy Bazemore, who was in that accident in turn 2, his night is also done as he goes to the garages. Here's another draw to the inside for the 88 car. Nose to nose at the yard of bricks that time. A lot better of a chance to get the job done. about a 3/4 of a car length gap, but he can't get all the way home. And all of this battling for the race lead has brought Thomas J. George into the picture. You've been seeing that Milwaukee Tool Chevy in the background of some of the shots while we've been fighting for the race lead. Well, he has also found himself right back up front in a 3-car breakaway. It sees Kyle Kamer in 4th position, over 2 seconds off of the pace of these cars up front. And now we'll see if George can make a splash.
And now Jacoby's tires are starting to go off a little bit from trying to fight with Freenash, it looks like. George has been sitting back and been able to reel in a couple tenths that they've been losing from their battle, and probably thinking, you know what, I'm just going to be nice and patient and wait for my chance. I think Jacoby might be now starting to slow down a touch, because this time by, he was half a second slower than Andrew Freenash, even with that pass on the bottom side. That's how much the tires are starting to factor in now in a 3-car.
And I was curious when he lost, when Jacoby was leading and he lost that second advantage, if he got into the fence or not, because again I saw him right up against the wall in the front straightaway. Don't really see any noticeable damage, so I think it does come down to the tires. And obviously Freenash, the better race car of those two right now, because while he was stuck behind him for a little bit, he gets out in front and he is absolutely checked out. This will be a better lap this time by. To look at the intervals, it'll be the first lap in which Freenash has led the entirety of it, as they were side by side the second to last time across the start-finish line when he went to complete the pass. So as George continues to sit about a car length off of Jacoby, lap time for your race leader, a 52.9 for Freenash to a 53.3 for Jacoby. So nearly a half a second of difference, as now it's the 88 car asserting his dominance 14 laps into this race.
But you have to think about this. Andrew Freenash, when it comes to tire-saving racetracks, this is right in his wheelhouse, essentially, for his skill set. He's got a unique talent of being able to pressurize drivers in front of him, force them to burn up their equipment, and then breeze on by while he's saving his own stuff, essentially. We've seen it many times with the old package, and now we've seen it a few times this season with the new package. It makes him hard to stop, essentially. There's a reason he's come away with double-digit victories for a second straight season, but to now bolt back towards 12th spot, because that's where we find another playoff contender. One person trying to fight to lock in a spot, Dylan C. Jones.
And not only Dylan Jones, but he's going to make a pass on the 4 of Anthony Fredericks. And Fredericks actually came into tonight 15th in the championship, only a single point ahead of Scott McClendon. So as Jones gets the spot, that's all fun and well. Jones moving up to 12th position after not taking a time in qualifying and therefore being the highest seeded provisional driver, 22nd on the grid. With Scott McClendon running in 8th spot, Anthony Fredericks down in 13th. He may be out if this race were to end now. Now, a long way to go. Fredericks hasn't lost anything. He's running exactly where he started, but McClendon actually started this race behind him. So an impressive drive early for the 51 car, up 6 spots for Scott McClendon. Big for the driver who came into tonight on that cut line in 16th, only a single point to the good, ahead of Jeremy Rittenberg, and as I mentioned, only 1 point behind the likes of Fredericks.
And you see Jones go back right behind Weekly, but right now Fredericks might have to hit the panic button. Have to hope for a bit of luck, because he does have some hood damage on the car, not just on the right side, but a bit on the left front, it looks like, too. And right now his lap times, compared to a lot of the others inside the battle for the championship, in some cases he's half a second off his championship contender. So Fredericks has a problem, essentially, and he's going to need to hope for a bit of luck at this rate, the way his race is turning out. Wouldn't be surprised to see some strategy, and Fredericks having to hope for a bit of luck at this point, the way the race is turning out, because he could lose some spots to the cars faster behind in Shackelford, Brotherton, Washington, and so forth.
And as you see cars get spread out and, Dylan Jones trying to still get around Weekly for this 11th position, you think, all right, well, this race has a good opportunity of going green, and that can lend itself to some strategy. Pretty wide open opportunity with 80 laps into this if you're going to be going for a 2-stop strategy. A little bit of leeway either side of that pit window to make some noise, and you can decide if you want to get out on the racetrack by yourself or if you want to be with some other race cars to draft with those fresh tires. But at the same time as that, with how close you're getting to the outside wall, and we saw it happen to Bazemore, at no point, no matter if it's a 5-car pack or 1 car on his own, you overstep that line a tad bit, you're wrecked. You could easily get a yellow flag at any point. So we've gone 17 laps opener here in the Brickyard 80, with Brotherton looking to the inside of the 12 car into turn 3. You just can't keep it stuck on the bottom, and Shackelford will defend again. Don't get complacent. This thing far from over as we close in just quarter distance.
Yeah, this is going to, we're slowly approaching that fuel window though, Evan. Have to note that the fuel can run at the most about 35 laps here at the Brickyard with this package. So, but they're still side by side behind. Shackelford pushed up a bit, and Washington and Goodell were able to get on by through turn 3. Shackelford stuck all the way to the top, has some damage. He's going to come down now.
He's coming down at lap number 19, so he may split this thing into thirds as he comes down pit road. I guess I should say into quarters, but 3 pit stops as he comes down to the pit lane after losing a ton of speed. It was Goodell who gave Washington a big shove on the inside. They were all teaming up on him. He opts to go to the pit lane, Justin, and I know that the tires are a primary focus at this racetrack. You always talk about what the difference is between fuel and with tires, but 20 laps in, thinks a little bit early. I'm not sure if everybody's going to be going for a 3-stopper.
And if, again, he just hit the wall nearly on his pit entry. It's a big but narrow pit box, so it's tough to get into the stalls. Some drivers, what we're talking about in real life for Sunday, they would prefer a later pit stall towards the end of the exit compared to one of the earlier stalls. Shackelford going to lose a lot of time here, not just with this early pit stop potentially, but also with that bad entry into the stall. This is going to hurt the number 12 machine.
And you actually just caught the end of that one as he got sideways, had to readjust to get into the pit box, and a caution flag at lap number 21. Gonna shake this one up a little bit. We'll find the cause. I think the 90 of Eberhardt is slow. Yes, it is, and we'll take a look at the LSR TV replay, Justin. We saw Bazemore earlier on in this one to make heavy contact with the inside wall and to be okay. Looks like Daniel Eberhardt got sideways, locked it up, and he did come to about 20 miles an hour, but I'd call that a save, but I guess slow enough to trigger the automatic caution flag, and it will slow down for the first time tonight at lap 21.
Yeah, the reason he got sideways, if you look at the left front tire on the apex of turn 1, he hit that white rumble strip. It's very slick if you hit it on the iRacing service, and it just sent him that much around. It was a heck of a save, mind you, to not just wheel it to the right to be able to keep it from the inside Armco barrier, but also be able to keep it from overcorrecting back into traffic. So while the caution flag did come out, yes, that could have been a much bigger incident than what it was there.
Yeah, fortunate you saw in the replay all of the cars that had come up shortly behind him, and with the onboard shot of Daniel Eberhardt, you could see loose conditions. Most drivers have been awfully tight, but he just lost it, getting down and very close to those rumble strips, locked it up, did a good job of not coming to back up too far into traffic, and it is a single car incident. They get a very minor yellow, but as tame as it can get to slow us down for the first time this evening at the Brickyard. So Friedage, who had about a 2.5 second advantage from the race lead, that's going to be totally evaporated. And on to Thomas George, now your second place runner, will be hot on his heels as they head down to pit road. Expected all your leaders to go for 4 in fuel.
Yes, this has to be the case here because you don't want to take 2 tires at the Brickyard. I'm just going to say that you will get very, very tight and potentially bottle up the field. Not the best of strategies. But the driver of this caution did save here, Evan, though, was Shackelford. Remember, he ducked down, had a disaster of a pit stop, and that caution came out, I believe, just as he was coming out. So, I believe he's in line for the lucky dog here as he was the only driver 1 lap down in the field.
That would certainly help him out as race leaders are in, and Andrew Friedage is way over to the right-hand side of his pit box. Fortunate that he's going to be allowed to get service there as that right rear was really close to the white line. He'll go for 4 in fuel, though. takes off, and it is going to be easy. The 88 car, first car off the pit lane. Thomas George defends second position. Kyle Kamer up a few to third. Jason Jacoby off at fourth, and Blake O'Connell, the fifth car to cycle out of the pit lane in the running order. So you will see now a little bit of a shuffle up front. You mentioned Skylar Shackelford, Justin, staying out to get back to the race lead lap, and in front of him, Andrew T. Jones staying out, presumably to get a bonus point. And you know, we see drivers do this on any given week, Justin, but I think most importantly tonight, Jones again was 14th coming into tonight in the championship, only 5 above the cutoff. That bonus point for a lap lead could be big later on tonight, so that's what he wants. But I believe Freinage was scored as the race leader last time by, so if he doesn't stay out for another lap, he's not going to get it.
And he's going to have to come down this time by, too. That's the main thing, though, with Andrew T. Jones, or else he won't be allowed to pit. You end up getting a pit road closed, essentially at 2 to go. At the 2 to go signal, rather, and it ends up meaning you have to stay out on whatever tire. So here comes Andrew T. Jones, as expected, down to the pit lane. 57 laps to go this time, though.
So the idea there is he stays out, everybody else pits, and he goes by at speed around them. And at most racetracks where the pit road entry is right on the exit at turn 4, your race lead cars are down at pit road speed for so long it's not that much of an issue. But you do come quite a ways off of quarter 4 before actually getting there. And for Andrew, who was running in 20th position when the caution flag came out, he just didn't pass them in time. And Freinage led that lap from pit road, so there will be no bonus point for Andrew T. Jones. He doesn't lose a ton because, like I said, he was running in 20th position. He'll be back in the 20s or so it's not like it was a gamble to give up a top 5, top 10 spot for that one single point. He'll be okay, but if this thing comes down to a 1-point differential, you might be thinking about just how close it was. So with him coming down to the pit lane, Freinage does cycle back to the race lead. Still waiting to see Skylar Shackelford get a wave around. That'll happen next time when the lights go out on top of the pace car. Presumably, it will leave us with 24 cars on the lead lap of the 28 that started this one, and there is his wave around the pace car. Brian Chambliss is 10 laps down, still in this race though, 25th position. The 2 cars that are out of it are Jeremy Bazemore and Tom Morano. We're in the garage and will finish P26 and 27.
Yeah, lucky again for Shackelford for the time of the yellow flag here, but it's going to get curious now how this championship could fall around here, because McLennan's in a great spot once again, now in the top 6 after a pretty decent pit stop. And all his American championship contenders for battling for a locked-in spot, Fredericks, Jeremy Renenberg, Shane Parrish, they're all the way in the back half of the field. So I think McLennan's in the driver's seat for his own championship hopes here to get himself into the round of 16. Everybody else, I think, has to get up on the wheel if they want any sort of chance, because the way this race is going, it looks like it might be a minimal caution event, not to jinx it. The way this race has been running, we've only seen a couple drivers have any sort of incident.
And if we're going to see some carnage, it may just be on the restarts. That was a theme in yesterday's Brickyard 400. And as the lights go on top of the pace car, with us going 3 wide for the race lead on the opening lap of this race, again, don't be surprised if it does come down to maybe some fisticuffs and some blows at a restart. I think this is a little bit too early still to get to that point, but drivers saw that, well, yes, the draft did keep cars together. It was in groups. You would have, at some points, in between 6 positions, mere tenths of a second. But you got a couple of cars on top of each other, Justin, but then the difference between one spot to another could be 5 seconds. Just that's how the draft works. So everybody's going to be up on the wheel knowing how critical the restart is, and they're going to be using up that fresh tires, see if they can make some noise. And Andrew Freinage is going to have a very busy rear-view mirror, I feel, as he'll be the control car on the inside line for the restart. Also just wanted to note that Daniel Eberhardt, again, cause of the caution down there in turns 1 and 2, claiming that one from the tower, so he'll get the end of the longest line penalty and will restart for this one back in 23rd. He'll probably actually end up being 24th by the time we get to it.
Yeah, all the way towards the rear end of the field. I believe he's come out of the pit lane. Shackelford just came out about 10 seconds ago. So they'll be about 23rd, 24th essentially in the grid. But you mentioned it on the restarts and the craziness. drivers have talked about, both on the iRacing service and in real life in NASCAR, that it's the best opportunity to make passes the first couple laps off them. Wouldn't be surprised to see some aggression from drivers like Jacoby from McClendon that want to try and cut up to the field and see what they can do to keep up with the man in the 88 machine.
Let's see how far out in front Andrew Freenage wants to get with the race car down and in. 25 laps down. Look at the coordination on the inside. Freenage with a good restart, but it is Kyle Kamer on his heels. He'll rock it up in a second position as George now struggling up top as Jacoby trying to look to the inside, but it's not going to happen.
And he nearly had his nose sawed right off, Jacoby did, with George coming down. Actually got a slight touch of a shot and checked up that time. So it looked like that time two of the Aegis cars able to hook up on the inside line for first and third to get a good, well-timed start, as it looks like they're trying to line up past Freenage.
3 wide back of the pack, but it is Kamer to the inside for the race lead. Drives it awfully good, but...
And there's trouble behind them. Cars in the grass and hitting each other.
Stanford's going to be one of the few cars to get away. Everybody else behind is in it. Caution at lap number 26. And I had mentioned while that battle for the race lead was going into the quarter that there was some 3 wide behind him. That's where this started. It was Miller initiating the 3 wide to the inside. In front of him, though, is where he gets into Eric Stanford, who gets knocked sideways. Justin, that's the car that you saw. The 67 O'Connell gets sideways. Miller gets sideways. Somehow those 3 hang on. The problem was it was the rest of the pack coming rocketed into the short chute, who started checking up and tripped all over each other. Caleb Weekly goes around. A couple of other cars bounced off of him and into the inside wall. Eberhardt, who was near to the front of the field, involved in the first yellow, I guess was the first yellow, and was back there because of an EOL, another driver who gets a piece of that.
Yeah, that was all craziness, essentially. You mentioned the 2 drivers hitting each other up in the front. I think it was honestly an incident caused by a checkup. For some reason, Stanford checked up a second time to corner entry. Maybe he thought he was going to push into McClendon's rear end, and Miller's not expecting that. That caused all the stack up. But that's going to cause a lot of damage for Fredericks' rear end, unfortunately for him. And it was just absolute craziness, essentially. Some of the drivers, I don't think, realized where in the short chute the incident was, or that there was even a checkup going on in front of them.
By the time that you get on the binders, you're 5-6 wide, cars spinning every which way, and if you check up too hard to avoid the wreck in front of you, you're going to get hit by the car behind you, who said that you checked up too hard, and that's the way it goes when you got an incident off for the restart. I'm not going to place the sole blame for this yellow on you, Justin, but you did say maybe we'll get away with it, and of course caution flags are that itchy point, touch to go to get through, and we got away with it the first time when we had the 3 wide, and this time it didn't quite pan out.
I'll put my hands up and say I might have had the commentator's curse, I guess, essentially there, as Chambliss gets the lucky dog. So he's the one that might be a bit happy down to 9 laps down, but man, that could have a bit of ramifications, and the worst again out of the playoff draw, the playoff hopefuls out of that mess again, was Fredericks with that severe back end damage. That will potentially hurt his straight line speed a decent amount, Evan, to be able to even have a chance here. He's going to have to hope he doesn't have any more errors or wrecks and makes it to the finish and hopes for a few more.
Split decision. The very top cars are going to stay out, but Eric Stanford from P9 is the first car down pit road. Pretty much everybody else behind him after a very short run wants more tires. We'll see what that means as this race gets set to go back green in just a few moments. So as we're under our second caution flag of the night, we'll step aside, take a yellow of our own. Come back to the Brickyard in just a moment. You're watching coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series on LSR TV, your home for sim racing.
There's a certain level of chaos or danger until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed Excite kept in the pits. Not to mention that with members in over 130 countries already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series and work your way up to one of 7 world championships, offering over $500,000 in prize money. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
And back live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we get set to go back green in this Brickyard 80 23rd round of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. We'll have the picture back to you in just a moment. But the field right now is cycling out of turn number 4. The pace car is going to head down and in, and Andrew Friedage will lead us back to the green flag with Kyle Kamer, Jason Jacoby, Thomas George, and Scott McClendon, your top 5 in tow. Green flag in the air, back across the yard of bricks, and much like he did on the inside of the second row last time, Kamer with a very good restart on Fridage's outside. There'll be 1-2 through quarter number 1, with Jacoby close it in from 3rd, McClendon behind him at 4th, side by side with Thomas George.
Top 3 able to get down to the bottom side. Single file to the backstretch they go. McClendon, though, still side by side with Thomas J. George for P number 4. George gets the run on the outside, while Kamer gets the push from Jacoby for the race lead into turn 3. Kamer fights hard with his Aegis teammate on the bottom side, heading to the short chute.
And Friedage keeps the nose there. Now they're back side by side in turn 4 with the momentum swinging back to the outside line. And it is the Ford-powered car on the outside that wins out in this battle. Friedage weathers the storm, and Kamer tucks back behind second. Jacoby's on his bumper. It's 3 light blue race cars, nose to tail, first, second, and third. Friedage leading Kamer and then Jacoby. Thomas George also making a pass on Scott McClendon. He'll go into number 4 position, but McClendon's still in a very good spot, who started 14th, running in P5. Single file that'll include Blake O'Connell in 6th, Shane Parrish in 7th, and then Jonathan Cadell losing a spot on the back straightaway as Dylan C. Jones picks up a race-high P8 for the 03 car.
And a good run so far for Jones, coming through the middle of 3 and 4 this time. Trying to reel in Shane Parrish now. Having a much better exit compared to the Surf Pro Flame and Green machine. Down the front stretch they go, but Jones not able to get the traps heading into turn number 1. Decides to still dive it in though with the late break. Able to make the pass easily as Parrish lets him go.
A lot of respect for these drivers to the 03 and Dylan Jones, 2 spots in 2 laps. He is creeping his way now into the top 10 for the first time this evening. Friedage check it out up front, half a second to the good over the likes of Kamer and Jacoby. In fact, things have settled down quite a bit. I would watch that 67 to Blake O'Connell. He's got a run on the number 51 of McClendon, looking to the inside, trying to make it work in the corner, and he's going to get pinched down, so McClendon not opting to give him room. That 2x2 battle is going to bring Dylan Jones in. Big run, but does not make it 3 wide. Instead, he'll lift and push O'Connell, who's not going to be able to get back up there, and Jones and O'Connell both going to have to reset if they want to get P5 away from McClendon. He's trying to get it at turn number 1. And 15 car just struggling to keep momentum. It sounds strange, but on corner entry is where he's losing it. He's backing off a lot more than some of these other cars, and he'll be briefly reprieved because the 03 car, Jones, trying to challenge O'Connell behind him down the back straightaway.
O'Connell pushed up a little bit on the exit of turn 2, actually. And I think is going to be now forced up on that non-preferred line. You can't stay up where O'Connell's at for too long, Evan, because if you stay up there and fight, your tires will end up turning into mush. That time O'Connell able to defend as Jones actually bobbles a bit on the bottom. But O'Connell might be feeling a bit more of that wear in the mid-portion of the run in a few laps or so.
And remember that when we had the most recent caution, it was after a very short run, but drivers did come down, decide to take tires, and at that point, one of the first cars off of the pit lane who made that decision was running in 9th position when it all happened to make the dive down to the pit lane. And those drivers who are trying to make their way up through the field now have been able to make some progress, but the core group, top 5, whatever you want to call them, the guys that have had all the speed all night long, seem to be relatively okay. Fridage's advantage from the point continues to grow side by side for second. Jacoby trying to challenge to the inside of Kyle Kamer. So let's see as the 3 of the 8 car going to drag race down the front straightaway. They both trying to lean in on each other, side draft into turn 1. The bottom lane may be the place to be. Jacoby can't hold it. He gets tight. And Kamer's got a chance to hold him off.
Yeah, I can't hold on for too long, though, because look how much time they're losing just by being side by side through one section of corners. George now sees an opportunity, and now he's got the most momentum out of them. Kamer, of course, trying to break up the slipstream by blocking to the bottom side, but now he's lost the bottom groove, and Jacoby gets that lane back once again. Now being able to have George to keep that door open.
And nowhere to go. He had some speed in turn 3, but that side-by-side roadblock in front of him forced him to lift out of the throttle, and at least for the second time this evening, Thomas George is going to be the one who comes up in a battle, takes the spots away. He'll move into the number 2 spot, but for how long? Kamer right back underneath him. Side-by-side at 1, and we've got more joining the party. McClendon watch it on. Dylan C. Jones is there as well. It is a 5-race car battle in turn 2, with the 8 car squeezing that 9 up against the fence, but it is not enough, and George will take him all the way down the back stretches. See what happens in turn 3.
You can see how much they're trying to push right now, knowing this might be some of the closest bits they get. Kamer way too close. And actually got a tap, I think, from Jacoby from the back end. But the man who's got to be licking his chops in all of this, again, has to be Dylan Jones, because all these drivers are burning up their equipment. I think Jacoby's now losing some momentum off the corners because McClendon's now got an opportunity from all that checking up on that last short shoot.
The 9 car is the one who gets the space to breathe. He now is in a race high number 2 spot. Kamer 3rd, but he's got the hounds behind him. McClendon, Jacoby, everybody's still all over each other's bumper. Even behind Dylan Jones, Blake O'Connell wanting to join the fray as he's got a little bit further a ways to go. Some bobbles by the likes of Jacoby that time off the corner, but for Dylan Jones' impressive run from 22nd to P6, he hasn't been for his head about it. We saw off of the restart, a couple of cars gave him some space, but since then he's had momentum. Could have made some 2 or 3 wide moves. Late braking down it into the corner, has opted not to. So Dylan Jones trusting what he's got underneath him, playing it smart at Indy. Still chasing that 3 in the 51 in front of him.
Yeah, he's waiting for Jacoby essentially to keep the bottom open. He's been doing it, Jacoby has, in the middle of turn 1 the past couple laps or so, but I don't think he wants to force it because, again, while he's been having a stellar summer part of the season, he's not exactly locked in for the playoffs yet, so he might fall out if he ends up getting in an incident with, say, Jacoby or anybody else in this field. Just has to wait for the right moment, and He nearly had the chance right there, but Jacoby knew that was potentially coming and just charged his way in, got off the gas later.
He drove it in so hard, he almost ended up underneath the fifth one of McClendon, who was making his arc down and into the corner, and that got a little bit tight there for the 3 car, and once again, he'll find himself a few car lengths off of the driver in front of him, with Dylan Jones pushing him down the front straightaway. But again, the 03 not forcing the issue. Jacoby's so much more aggressive at entry. Here's where it's going to hurt him. Quarter off, not only for the straightaways like off the 2 and off the 4, but even for that short shoot. A more aggressive driver could have easily challenged him to the inside there. He opts not to, though, and I wonder if Blake O'Connell is going to be as patient as the 67 Ford gets into this battle from P7. He'll also lift off, so as these drivers start to lose their tires a little bit, being a little bit more wary of when they're going to make these moves into the corners and when they opt not to, and Dylan Jones finally going to stick the nose to the inside, but positioning is better for Jacoby topside and halfway home in the Brickyard 200. No change there. Andrew Frenage 4 seconds to the next closest race car.
But that move by Jones actually opened up the door again for O'Connell to try and make a pass. Elects to back out of it, though, and allow Jones to the bottom side to the short shoot of 1 and 2. But again, they've been shuffling along so much and fighting so much here, Evan, that they've all held themselves up. That has allowed O'Connell again to reel back in the rear end of Jones. Jones had taken off away from him. John Goodell has also now joined this conversation. That's how much they're starting to slow each other up, about 1/10 of a second slower than Kyle Kamer, and at least a few tenths slower a lap than Thomas George.
That time by halfway home from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's take a look top to bottom at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break that sees the 88 of Andrew Frenage 4 seconds ahead of Thomas J. George, who right now has scored P2. He's even opened up a little bit of a healthy margin to the likes of Kyle Kamer in 3rd. Scott McClendon, this ongoing battle's the head of the group in 4th. And Jason Jacoby, your pole sitter, right behind him, still in 5th position. Dylan Jones, one of your biggest movers, in fact tied as the biggest mover, is in P6. Blake O'Connell is 7th, and the driver that Jones is tied with is behind him, Jonathan Cadell, 24th on the grid. He runs 8th on the racetrack at the moment. Ahead of Shane Parrish, who is P9, and Eric Stanford rounds out your top 10.
Kyle Shackelford trying to find a way around Stanford, in fact, trying to again recover from an early pit stop. He's able to get back on the lead lap fairly quickly, though, with the time of the yellow flag afterwards. Rhett McBride is behind him in 12th, with Andrew T. Jones back in 13th spot in front of Jeremy E. Miller, who started on the outside front row and is continuing to drop back and is actually working with Brian Chambliss in lap traffic. Sean Kalis is in 15th, with Anthony Fredericks all the way back in 16th position with a ton of rear-end damage. David Washington's in 17th, with Scott Brotherton in P18, -8 from the drop of the green flag, working with Todd Novosad and Jeremy Rittenberg and his group to round up the top 20.
Only a few more cars on the lead lap, but it will include a damaged number 10 of Caleb Weekly, who was 21st, and then Kurt Rittenberg, who started 27th. Has been staying out of trouble. In fact, he's probably going to pass Caleb Weekly here in just a few laps, but for the moment, he is 22nd in the final car on the lead lap. 1 lap down, you'll find the 78 of Matt Miller in 23rd, so if we get a yellow, he will be the lucky dog to get back through to it. Brian Chambliss is 9 laps down in 24th position, and that'll do it. Daniel Everhart behind the wall in 25th. It was an early end to the evening as well for Jeremy Bazemore, who will finish in 26th, and Tom Morano at the very back in 27th position. That's been a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEG PC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers, specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything that you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600 plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. For more info, log on to www.fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. That fight for P5, Justin, still ongoing. We mentioned Scott McClendon was at the lead of this group of race cars. Jacoby getting some distance, but now it is Dylan Jones on deck, the 03 car, looking for a way by.
And Jones was side by side for half a lap at one point just a few moments ago. But again, he's just not been able to launch off the apex off to make the pass. With this package, I've noticed, especially on the long run, you want to get the pass done by corner entry to the apex. And you might actually have to push up the driver on top of you, because that driver above you can end up pushing you down. We've seen it a lot with Jacoby, and it forces you to get off the throttle to make sure you don't make contact. It's going to be tough for Jones to get on by, because they're losing a lot of time, I think, at this point, stuck behind McClendon. They're now about a second behind Jacoby.
And it might be harder to visualize that when he got so many cars in a battle, but just think back to earlier in the race when we saw Andrew Friedrich catch up, make the pass, and then check out after struggling for several laps to actually complete that move on at-time race leader Jason Jacoby, who started this one out from the pole position. So similar thing that Dylan Jones has been working with, and again, he's in a spot where, coming off of back-to-back top 3 finishes, he's gained 6 spots in the points the last 2 weeks out to go from 19th to 16th and then 16th to 13th. I don't think his objective this evening really is to force that car into some precarious positions and possibly wreck it. You junk the race car, you might not make the playoffs. If you just putt around, and I know putting around is a different bar for most people, but Dylan Jones at P6 again from 22nd. Most would consider that an impressive drive, but I'm seeing a lot of patience out of the 03 car right now. Just don't force it. I think he's comfortable waiting and allowing these moves to come to him, given the risk versus reward.
Yeah, to be honest, with the way he's performed in the second half of the regular season, he might be one of the favorites for the championship. The thing is, though, remember, he missed a lot of races early on. First win came at Richmond, and essentially has built momentum since then and points. He needs to make sure he gets in the round of 16. Then I wouldn't be surprised to see the aggression level go up to try and fight with his own teammate, even in Andrew Friedrich, because again, they're actually in fact fighting in the Road to Pro point standings as well, which again is one of the qualifiers for the eNASCAR Peak and Freeze iRace series, where Jones is the first driver out of those standings. As mentioned that, cars are ducking to the pit lane, it looks like, Evan. Well, the battle is also on between Cameron and Jacoby.
And they'll drop to the pit lane as Kyle Cameron and Jason Jacoby battle for 3rd and 4th position. Very interesting. Last time cars were on pit road was at lap number 29, so just shy of a 20-lap run. Would line up with the maybe 1 or 2 cars just that we saw come down to the pit lane only 20 laps into the race, but I mean, we're looking at 32 to go. You think maybe you'd go the extra 5 or 6 laps, split it in half, and go for the one-stopper to the end.
Yeah, it's a one-stopper essentially for all of these drivers. That's the main thing. The thing is, though, when do you come down? Because the earlier you come in, the more you'll gain in time. The amount of fall-off today is around 3 seconds already, from the fastest laps of the day to right now on some of these race cars. If you pit too early, the drivers that end up stretching it out are going to pass right on by you. So it's a major risk or give or take essentially situation of when you come in. And it's also a gigantic racetrack too, where it's hard to follow a lap down if you time it up right. So a lot has to be in the minds of the drivers, while Jacoby fights for 3rd.
He'll get a big drive up the inside of Cameron, and this time he'll pull up before the quarter entry. You can get a proper dive down in, and Jacoby does take the spot away. Back up to 3rd, drop Cameron to the number 4 position. As well, when you talk about strategy like this, it does maybe lend itself to the drivers who are part of some bigger teams to formulate a strategy better. Say the guys at Steelhorse Racing, Bisford Motorsports, whatever combination of cars you want to be talking about. When you got a few of them in there, you can kind of play around with the strategy a little bit and or just get on sequence with one another. But those pit stops are going to drop these cars way to the back. You see Anthony Fredericks, the number 4 machine. He came down pit road. That is a damaged number 4 car that was only 1 point above the cut line, involved in an earlier accident. He's trying to survive, and critical gamble for him because he'll drop a lap by making the pit stop this early, with Friedrich and the company staying out up front.
And the thing is, though, keep an eye on how much time, because we already seen O'Connell actually get his lap back about a few moments ago. That's how close he got to him. But Fredericks he's in a very different situation. He's got a car that's very battered and down on some speed. And even with the fresher tires, you can see already struggling a little bit to reel in guys like Adele even and find a way around the 69 machine. So Fredericks is in a bit of a danger spot, essentially, where he needs, I think, at least a couple more yellows to get the car fully repaired to see if he can do anything to hope for a championship push to be inside the top 16 right now. It's not working. He's not in a great situation all the way back in 21st. I think he might even lose positions with this undercut.
But it was looking a lot better early. He started 13th and had been running in a pretty good position. Didn't lose anything, but of course eventually it wasn't gaining much. It was Scott McClendon to pass it him up. He would be then the driver sent down to the cut line. If you keep McClendon right now having a decent run, in fact a very good run in P5, Fredericks would drop down behind him, and you're looking at Anthony Fredericks going head-to-head with Jeremy Rittenberg. That would be 2 points between them, and Rittenberg is currently 4 spots ahead of Fredericks on the racetrack. So simple math says Fredericks live standings 2 points out if it is between those two cars for 16th and 17th in the championship. Of course, he is already pitted, and Jeremy Rittenberg is just now pitting as several other cars come down pit road. So it may be decided between a healthy 26 and a damaged to number 4.
And speaking of cars that were pitting, remember Shackelford's first green flag pit stop? He overran his box again the second time today. This time locked up the tires and lost another 3-4 seconds backing up in the pit lane in his number 12 machine. So the Cold Air Production sponsored machine not having a fun one, to say the very least.
Yes, that was a big slide too. I'm curious, 60 miles an hour pit speed limit. I know it's a long pit road. I don't think you're missing the box. I wonder if that extra 5 or 10 miles an hour is what's doing it to these guys compared to other racetracks.
And on top of it too, look at the difference in materials when you look at the pit lane as drivers like Miller now duck down. You have asphalt for the pit lane itself, but the pit boxes are essentially concrete, which is a massive amount of slippage that you have when you go on that transition. And we've seen guys who end up carrying too much or end up braking too late just slide on through. Even Miller actually locked up the brakes trying to get in there just barely inside the line. So it's a tough task with the difference in materials, and it's the same thing coming off the pit lane essentially out of those boxes to avoid tire spin. We've seen it in real life a few times, but some of the leaders are coming in. Kamer is in.
Kamer's going to dive down to the pit lane as Andrew Friedage up front, still leading. Jacoby assuming the number 2 position. McClendon now 3rd, Jones 4th, Cadell P5 as Thomas George, you see the 9 car, he's down it onto pit road, so he'll give up his top 10 running position and pits from 9th.
So this is going to, we'll have to see if George's strategy works out. It's again inside the top 5 much of that run. So we'll see if this call works. Looks like he's going to have to try and hope for a bit of luck because Freenach had gained somewhere 8-9 seconds, give or take, already on the rest of the grouping. So meanwhile, it looks like some of the air drivers are going to stay out. Freenach staying out for as long as he can. Jacoby staying out. McClendon 3 seconds back of Jason Jacoby at the moment will also stay out with Jones.
And I'd still consider all of the cars that we've seen to pit road at this point as the short pitters. Again, pit road, last time we saw cars onto the pit lane, it was under the caution flag at lap number 29. That was if you pitted. Remember, not everybody came down to the pit lane. The race leader stayed out. So, in fact, Friedage and the company do have a little bit older tires, a substantial lap number, about 6 or 7, but only one of those extra laps was actually under green flag conditions. But if you say that lap number 29, you went back to the racetrack at 30, well, you split it in half, 55, would be making it a 25 lap run times 2. So now is maybe the sweet spot for the strategy. Friedage still not even glancing at looking to pit road. But again, with 25 laps since we went green and 25 to go to the end of this Brickyard 200. We'll see if we got more takers, and Dylan Jones will dive down. He's in from P4.
That tells me that this might be the window now open for some of the outrageous cars here. I'd be surprised now if Freenach tries to duck down in about a lap or 2, maybe. But we'll have to wait and see, because I wouldn't be surprised either if we see a few drivers try and push it if the fuel takes can to 20 to go to have the freshest possible tires to see if they can reel in as much time as they can.
Just looking through him in the intervals now, Friedage continuing to add on to it to Jason Jacoby. He's gained an additional 1.5 seconds in just the last few times around. It is now a 10-second difference between those two, and Jason Jacoby was not second when this pit cycle began, so do keep that in mind. In fact, the 3 car is now slowly inside, and he will pit, so Jacoby in from second, McClendon get a bit from third, Cadell staying out, Parrish staying out. They'll catch up to race leader Andrew Friedage, who is still yet to pit, and if you see the 88 car, you actually see the 03 Dylan Jones using that access road to come back out onto the racetrack. That difference between Friedage and the field, especially the cars overly going to be pitted and completed with that stop, which should be their final one of the night, is going to be much, much smaller. Look at the 03 on the 88 here, blowing by him at that 3+ second intervals. So Friedage has given up time the longer he stays out there. It'll counteract, though, like a teeter-totter. He'll be good on the end of the next long run, but here he is down pit road, lap number 57. He's in.
So about just 2 laps after his teammate, essentially, that just passed on by. So he's going to lose some time, yes, as you mentioned. I expect at least a few seconds minimum, but he's going to be able to gain that time back fairly quickly especially compared to guys like George, O'Connell. He's going to have the tire advantage on much of the field here, as Parrish also coming in this time by. Cadell has stayed out.
So Cadell's going to get an opportunity to lead a lap at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, working on our longest green flag run of the night from the Brickyard, 23rd and final regular season race of this 2019 campaign. And happy that you're with us here on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network with Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and Randy Chennett downstairs, and Friedage, who has been in control for the better part of this one, is now blending back out onto the racetrack at lap 58, and he is ready to lock in and run this one to the end with lap times under green flag conditions, still in the 53s, even with that tire fall off. If we were to stay green, no more than 20 minutes or so away from seeing the checkered flag fly. So if something's going to happen late, we'll have to see if it's going to change things up. And Friedage now, after having given up so much time by staying out and waiting to pit Justin, he'll now make quick work of the cars that have made some moves on him.
Cadell's ducked in, so Sean Kalis, the last of the drivers to stay out, but along with Weekly, I should say, you can see the difference already with Friedage. Already able to pass by O'Connell and Weekly like they're standing still. That's about a 7-8-ish lap tire difference. Again, Friedage currently running around the 50-second mark when he gets going here. Well, everybody else he just passed by is already dropped down to the 53-second bracket, so he's in a great spot right now. He's just got to reel in about just under 4 seconds now to catch back up to Thomas George, and he's going to be in a decent spot to try and make the pass. As long as he doesn't overuse his equipment, he might be able to reel in George pretty quickly, since George has already fallen to the near 52s.
He'll have to get to George, and the time-wise difference or gap between them is quite a lot. We'll see this time by the start-finish line, but Sean Kalis still trying to push this run to the very end and maybe catch a yellow. Friedage is 3 seconds behind Thomas George. In most cases, it's a ton of time to make up. We'd be talking about, can he get there by the end? He may get him by the end of this lap. That's just how much faster than him is. Friedage with a 50.6 compared to a 51.8 by George, so he'll cut that by more than half, and will probably pass it the next time by. And I think Thomas knew this was going to happen. Again, the gamble to come down pit road, maybe you get a yellow and you stay on the lead lap, you stay out, you get a position, and it all balances out. But I don't think there was any realistic expectation of beating Andrew Friedage for this one on the green flag run, and when the 88 catches him, he'll probably take care of business pretty quickly. But George still in a good spot, but he'll struggle a lot more to the end of this run. If we go green for the next 20 laps, 20 to go from IMS, those tires are not going to be having a good time when it gets down to the final 5.
And I mean, he had to try something different, right? You can't just do the same thing as the leader and hope to see different results or so forth. He needed to find a way to gain a lot of time and see if he can contend for the lead, and he tried it. And now Freenush has already reeled him in. The thing is, though, it's 7 seconds back to the next spots. Jones, Jacoby, O'Connell, all the way back there. So George, while he is potentially and very likely going to lose this lead here this time by, he's in a great spot to maybe defend for second spot now, as Freenush gets the run with a massive amount of difference in speed already on corner exit.
And this is now the battle for the race lead. Andrew Friedage, way fresher tires, going to work on the bottom, and he will go back to the race lead. That is what? A difference in tires of 5 laps, 6 laps, looks like, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The tire fall off, big factor tonight, and there is nothing now standing in between Andrew Friedage and a clean racetrack in front of him. Next car to put a lap down would be Kurt Rittenberg, and no major playoff implications there. And Kurt's did a good job of keeping his nose clean. Has picked up 5 spots from the start of the race. He may be the final car to actually get lapped by this one is actually said and done, if we get the next 18 laps uninterrupted. But those other cars, Justin, they have tried to mix up the pit strategy as a ditched effort to shake things up and make a play at the 88 car. Now all they can hope for is maybe a restart is due up, because they're going to be fighting amongst themselves here with Dylan Jones and Jason Jacoby about to go at it for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and Jacoby was actually the fastest car on the racetrack, believe it or not, even with Freenush on the fresher tires, as Freenush was mowing down the gap between him and George. So Jacoby was pushing as hard as he could. Problem is, though, he's fallen right back to where we were expected and might have lit up his tires, so now he's trying as hard as he can, even with the draft, to fight with the driver on fresher tires and Jones, but Jacoby's going to be fighting an uphill battle, essentially, in the J. Jacoby 88 machine to try and move up. He is in a great spot, though, for the top 5. At the pit stop, he did jump McClendon in the standings.
You'll also see at the top of your screen the car behind number right under the lap counter there for Andrew Friedage, as he'll continue to pull away from Thomas George. You'll see that happening in real time. George is still, this time by 6 seconds ahead of the battle between Dylan Jones and Jason Jacoby, but he's also a second slower than them. So again, that short bit has immediate benefits to where when everybody cycles off for the pit lane, you got the track position. The problem is you've used up the fresh tires, so this could probably end up with Thomas George dropping outside of the top 3 with Jones and Jacoby catching him. And, of course, their advantage is going to start to fall off, but 16 laps is still a lot of time, so that's kind of a fun subplot to watch as we keep an eye on the battle for 3rd and 4th. Watch those intervals at the top of your screen and just see how far back George has fallen from Friedage, how far back he's getting into the range of those cars 3rd on back.
The gap right now is actually about 6 seconds, give or take, between Jones and George. So George is actually holding his own, even though he's a few tenths slower a lap than the drivers trying to reel him in. It might be enough for George to hold on to a 2nd place finish. This will be one of his strongest finishes of 2019 if he can pull it off in the number 9 machine for Steel Horse Racing. So he's in a great spot. Again, Jones is as well. Again, he needed to make sure he had the points along with McClendon to lock themselves into the top 16. They did their jobs today. So they're looking really good and really healthy here, coming to 15 laps to go.
And looking through again, you mentioned the shuffle up for the running order in the championship picture with the likes of those drivers down on the cut line. Jeremy Rittenberg, one of them, he is last on the lead lap now, with Kurt Rittenberg having been lapped. At actually Andrew Fridage's pace may allow him to lap Rittenberg, Kalis, and some of these other cars. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it may. But again, Rittenberg came into tonight 1 point below the cut line behind McClendon, and Scott McClendon's running in P5, having a fantastic night. So the next driver you would look at is Anthony Fredericks. Even with damage, the 4 car is running in 15th. Andrew T. Jones is having a good night, so if anybody really needs the yellow, it's Jeremy Rittenberg. He needs more.
Yeah, and Jeremy Rittenberg on top of that, though, has some damage to deal with. Remember, though, with him, he was as high as 12th, actually. After the race at New Hampshire, it's been a disaster of a couple of weeks. Of course, the road course at Watkins Glen, the race at Michigan, then, of course, the Bristol race. Really, though, the picture changed with that race at Darlington. Remember, some contact with, I believe it was Horn, in fact, trying to go 3 wide. That dropped him 4 spots in the standings entering tonight. So, that one situation from that race at Darlington put him in this situation. He was in a comfortable spot. But unfortunately, past few bad races have took him out of this contention, essentially, for the top 16.
You could put such a microscope on this race. If it comes down and stays as we're 3 wide now back in this battle with a 4 car in the middle, and Anthony Fredericks wants nothing to do with that, so he'll back out as Kalis on the fresher tires, rocking it up the inside, and Kalis at Washington now going to do battle for 16th and 17th. Kalis winning out on that one, and Fredericks losing another spot, getting closer and closer to Rittenberg with that damage as this run goes on. It is not done yet. I don't know if Fredericks is going to be able to stay ahead of Rittenberg. The problem is, I don't know if Rittenberg's going to be able to get more than 2 positions. He needs to get 3 spots ahead of him. That could be the challenge. But, you know, you're right, Justin, in the point you make. You talk about the last couple of weeks, if they've been rough. We talk about how good the last couple of weeks has been for Jones. The opposite end of the ship for Rittenberg there. So you can kick yourself over how this race plays out. What if my pit strategy was a little bit different? What if I wasn't involved in this yellow? If I qualified better? If I didn't qualify, stayed back, wasn't into an accident? But it really comes down to accumulation of 23 weeks of competition, all those weeks counting to your playoff seeding.
In the end, it's going to be unfortunate, I think, for Rittenberg. Again, I think he would feel like he had a chance with this championship, or at least to be in the top 16. But again, if you don't have the consistency all the way through, especially when it counts, it can absolutely hurt you. And for Rittenberg, I think it's done that. And so this is unfortunate, I think, for Rittenberg, because I believe he would be out at this point if the points were calculated. Have to wait until the end of the race to wait and see, though, as that battle is still shaking up. Mind you, Chambliss is still 9 laps down to be precise. It's still shaping up with Kalis, who was the freshest tires out of that entire group. He stayed out very long in that 43.
Yeah, it's impressive that the 45 was able to get around. Kalis has got about 5 or 6 lap fresher tires compared to him, as we watch more battles still going on the racetrack. Jeremy Miller, Kyle Kamer, they're battling for 11th and 12th position. In fact, a battle no longer, because the 8 car gets the better of it on the inside line into turn number 3. So Kyle Kamer up to that number 11 spot, getting around Miller.
Yeah, and we're looking now at the 19 machine with this 3-car group that's breaking up. That's Eric Stanford specifically. That's in the middle of an O'Connell and Cadell sandwich, essentially. Stanford, remember, does have that little bit of back-end damage, but he's had a pretty quiet but good race. He's gained spots as the event's gone on, and is in line to get another one, because remember, O'Connell tried the short pit. That is now starting to fall downward for him, as now that opens up the door for the drivers who pushed long in both Stanford and Cadell. Remember, Cadell pushed it about the 3rd longest in the field.
Eric Stanford comes into tonight 2nd in the championship, but in fact the only driver at the top 3 without a win. Andrew Freitas has got 10. Jason Jacoby has got 4. He's got none. No wins, no poles. Consistency has been the name of the game for Stanford. And at 10 laps to go, both he and the 60 Donna Cadell are going to get around the 67 of O'Connell. Looks like Cadell's going to have a little bit more of a struggle with it. Cadell, another playoff driver who came into tonight 8th in the championship standings. Blake O'Connell, driver who has been with us for the better part of this season as well, trying to put up a fight against these future playoff guys and make the 69 work for it. But Eric Stanford has been one who has taken to the consistency is the name of the gameplay. But once we get into the playoffs and the rules change, the win in you're in does come into effect. I'm thinking that 19 team's going to want a little bit more. They can get as many top 5s as they want. That's very good, more than enough to get into the playoffs. You can probably get through the round of 16 and the round of 12 easily with those numbers as well. But if you want a serious chance to fight for the RealSimRacing Championship trophy, then you're going to need a tad bit more. He's been the most consistent driver this year. Want to see if Eric Stanford can find a race win here. He deserves one.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised he hasn't been able to break through in victory lane yet. I think it's just a matter of needing a little bit of luck. Because, of course, we've seen Andrew Freenot have a strong season. Drivers like Connor Horn find their way to victory lane and have a strong campaign. Unfortunately, not able to be here tonight due to technical issues with his PC. But I think we might see Stanford maybe break through in the round of 16. I have that gut feeling because there's a couple races that might bring up some randomness, essentially. And I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks through there, if he gets the right amount of luck, attrition, and strategy go his right way.
And it's funny because through all of this, Stanford and Cadell were pretty quiet on our radar, but you mentioned they stretched it out a little bit longer on the strategy. These cars having pitted right when I thought they should, about lap 54, 55. Weren't part of the short pitters, but didn't push it too far, and it'll be big gains for all of them. Of course, Dylan Jones, we mentioned, has been a little bit timid this evening, despite the fact that he has passed 17 race cars to get to 4th position to be where he sits right now. He has taken his time, and big moves for him. 22nd to 4th. I mentioned Scott McClendon, 14th to 5th. Jonathan Cadell, 24th to 7th. So the cars have been making noise in this one, but no doubt Andrew Freenot from the get-go started in 4th position. Didn't get the best time to practice, of course, didn't get the pole time, and for as good as he's been, it's quite a rare occasion where either of those stat categories don't go in his favor. But once he got to the race lead, he loved that clean air, and he's going to be more than 10 seconds, I believe, to the race lead when this one ends. But it is not over yet, and I had alluded to maybe Thomas George dropping it back into the clutches. The third on back. We're almost there, Justin. 6 laps to go. Next time by, Jason Jacoby is 2 seconds behind George in a possible battle for 2nd and 3rd.
As a matter of fact, actually, Evan, Jason is the only driver that's been in the same ballpark as Andrew Freenot. It seems the same 10th, rather, in the 15 4s, 3s for the past few laps or so. In fact, Jacoby about a 100th quicker. But it's still... They're still trying to gain some time, essentially, on the racetrack again, Jacoby, because I think he's got himself a chance to at least move up to 2nd here, but that basically like 5 to 15-ish pace for Jacoby, I think, really killed his chances with the victory, even with the undercut strategy, because on the long run, him and Andrew are dead even. That mid-run where Andrew has been able to grow that gap the most, he has been one of the slowest.
And that's where it was big. We saw drivers able to challenge Andrew Freenot right off of the get-go. Again, after that opening yellow, we would go on to see 2 more restarts where drivers would challenge him for the race lead. In fact, at some points, getting ahead of him. But you're right, it was that middle portion of the run where he just set a blistering pace that he really started to pound the rock as well right before the pit stops. I think that may have been his best interval lap by lap compared to the other cars, was getting ready to come down for pit stops. So a lot of drivers were starting to get worn out. Their tires were falling off, and they were just trying to make their number to get to pit road. He was putting in work, and that's where the bulk of, again, what may be a double-digit second advantage by the end of it came from. 4 laps to go, though, this time by. It may feel like an eternity at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You gotta get to the white flag for this race to be official, as he is way out in front of George. And the good news is, as well, not a ton of lapped traffic in front of him, if he may be getting up to Anthony Fredericks, who's in a precarious position in the championship.
He did pass Rittenberg already, but again, Anthony, going to be curious to see how the end of the race results and standings all shape out for the number 4 machine, because this race went the worst of ways, again for him, that it could have in that Rockstar machine. Didn't have the best of runs to start off, even before the incident. Then that said incident that essentially knocked the speed out of it, and now he's about to fall a lap down to Andrew Freenot, so he'll finish the day an extra 2.5 miles early if this race finishes under the green flag. Rough day for Anthony.
And again, we'll wait till this race is done. We'll get the official points, hopefully, before we step away and let you know. With those 16 drivers that'll be fighting for the championship this year will be, but based on how they run, I think those 4 coming in are good. It should be Dylan Jones, Andrew Jones, Anthony Fredericks, and Scott McClendon, because, again, Jeremy Rittenberg running behind all of them at a racetrack in P20. Shane Paris, though, is having a very good night in P10, but he was 16 points back, and I don't think his margin is going to be enough to any of those other drivers. He's ahead of Fredericks by 9. That's a little bit more than half of what he needed to make up, and Parrish may miss the playoffs by the fact of just missing 1 too many races over the course of the regular season to compare to some of the race cars that will end up in front of him. Again, all speculation. We're not done yet. We'll get an official number by the end of it, but up front for Andrew Fredinage, it is Popsicle 6 in the air. 2 more laps to go for the 88 car.
And really, as soon as he took the lead, he's just been on a cruise. Just an absolute stellar drive, to say the very least. And it looks like, though, by the way, Evan, the draft is now being reeled in on George by Jason Jacoby, so second might be about to heat up. Throw that out the window as Jacoby hits the wall.
And Jacoby was willing to push it and caught the fence there. That's going to cost him about 10 miles an hour down the back straightaway, and just as it looked like he was maybe going to get there in the nick of time, I don't know if Jacoby's going to be able to close the deal on George. All of this assuming that the number 9 car could keep it clean as they all look for the white flag, and Andrew Fredinage has got it. Final time around at the Brickyard as we get set to fight for this 2019 championship. We have seen impressive drives by some of the veterans of this series. Names going back to Dwayne Vincent was when we talked a lot about this season, but Andrew Fredinage here in 2019 broke the all-time wins record in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series just a couple of weeks ago, getting his 10th win of the year. Also broke the all-time single-season wins record, and he's only going to continue to pile on the numbers and to keep the momentum going as he looks to fight for the 2019 title. He'll go back-to-back to close out the regular season. Final time at a turn 4 for Andrew Fredinage, who's an 11-time winner this season. He gets the job done and wins at the Brickyard.
And it looks like David Washington started the celebration about a lap too early. Actually held up Andrew. But man, oh man, this was a master drive from Andrew.
And the little exchange there with him and David Washington having some fun with each other is the only reason why the margin of victory is going to be quote-unquote only 8.4 seconds. That late mistake by Jacoby does cost him. He is not going to be able to get George. So Thomas George hangs on and will finish in second position. So a good result for him as he picks up his 7th top 5 in 2019, and Jacoby to round out the podium. But Andrew Fredinage has had a lot of practice at this as he'll celebrate at yet another historic racetrack. Of course, your race winner 2 weeks ago at Darlington, a heavy championship favorite. And I know when it all comes down to one race for the title, you can't guarantee anything, but I would bet just about any amount that he is the driver that makes it all the way to Homestead. 11-time winner this year and a champion of the Brickyard 200. Fredinage is going to celebrate.
And Andrew has shown again, time and time again, he's one of the most polished, if not the most polished race car driver in this series. And there's a reason he's up inside the top 50 right now in the Road to Pro standings to try and make it to the Peak Series. He's a talented driver and puts a lot of practice into his craft. Again, towards a full green flag run minimum before each and every race to help prepare. And I think that definitely has to help, surely, in part with his 11 victories this season. 21 wins in the past 2 years now, Evan.
Worked hard for this one, works hard for all of them, but when it goes green and he can flex his muscles like this, he looked like he was going to take an entirely extra lap to celebrate. He'll come back and wave to the crowd here at IMS, celebrating again a historic win on a historic 2019 campaign. We'll take one final opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll go trackside. Take a look top to bottom, and as well talk to your top finishers. Get you set for the playoffs due next Monday from Las Vegas. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series post-race at Indy when we come back.
Voice of the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. Introducing Pro 2 and Pro 4 trucks on iRacing. Game on!
And welcome back live to the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're round number 23 of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, is wrapped up this evening. From the Brickyard, Andrew Friedage, an 11-time race winner, as we welcome you back into the LSR TV booth. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince with Randy Cheneth, and we'll go trackside, talk with your top finishers in a moment, and let you know your playoff grid. But first, as always, let's take a look top to bottom at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Andrew Friedage to the race win by the tune of over 8 seconds to Thomas J. George in second and Jason Jacoby third. We'll be chatting with all of them in just a moment. Dylan Jones finishes fourth and Scott McClendon rounds out a top 5. Eric Stanford close, but not enough to dig out of a 16-point deficit. He'll miss the playoffs, finishing to P6 tonight. Jonathan Cadell comes home 7th. Blake O'Connell is 8th. Rhett McBride finishes 9th, and Shane Parrish rounds out your top 10.
Now, Gamer, who ran as high as inside the top 3, finished in 11th at the end of the day. Skylar Shackelford recovered from a rough start to the race to finish in 12th. Andrew G. Jones in 13th, with Jeremy E. Miller dropping all the way to 14th. Sean Kale was charged up to 15th on fresh tires, with Scott Brotherton and Todd Novosad, along with David Washington rounding up the drivers on the lead lap. Should note, David Washington, while a minute back, was trying to celebrate with Andrew Friedage. First drivers a lap down were two drivers in the playoff cut line picture, Anthony Fredericks and Jeremy Rittenberg.
Even those drivers acknowledging the speed of Friedage continuing on through a couple of cars a lap down. It'll include Fredericks 19th and Rittenberg, as you noted. Also with them, Weekly, Kurt Rittenberg, and Brian Chambliss. Those drivers were actually still in this race and putting up a fight late. A couple of cars didn't make it that distance. It'll include Matt Miller 24th, Daniel Everhart 25th, Jeremy Bazemore 26th, and Tom Moreno in 27th position. That's been a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go online to fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Let's head down to Brickyard of Victory Lane, where we are standing by with the driver of the 88 car. It's another win for Andrew Friedage on 2019. And Andrew, to close out the regular season, this would may have been in just as dominating fashion as any of the other of them.
Yeah, man, no, that was a lot of fun out there. I really enjoyed this. This was, we were on the brake, actually getting out of the gas. A lot of the other tracks, you get on the brake, you're kind of just screwing your momentum up. So that was really fun. Really had to work for that one. I think Thomas really had matching speed. I just got lucky to get away on the restart there, and then he just tried to pit earlier, and I knew if we went green, those fresher tires would pay off. So congrats to everybody who made it into the chase there. I know that was a heck of a battle. I was trying to give as much room as I can when I went by those guys, either passing them with the tires and whatnot. So I hope that was fun to watch for everybody. That was an awesome race, though.
Obviously, this racetrack is still different to run at than what it has been in the past, but you mentioned you guys were still able to get off of the throttle, and that has been maybe the biggest gripe for drivers, and yourself included, who isn't the biggest fan of how this 2019 package works. But you also mentioned that it maybe wasn't as easy as the margin at the end would have suggested. A couple of restarts there where drivers were on you. It just so happens that you were able to pull away at the end. What was really the difference maker in a race that went green for the better part of that second half?
Yeah, I was watching Malik race stream, shout out to him, and he won top split on IS last night, and he said clean air was king, so I think it handled different when you were out front, to be honest. I think it was a lot easier to drive. I think Jacoby just cooked his tires a little bit there in the short run, and I was able to get by him, and then that clean air really came into play once the draft kind of died down a little bit, and that's how we were able to pull away, in my opinion. I know when I was catching lap cars there, it would get so tight. I could not believe how tight it was with the aero push. So I think that was really key. And, again, I think the guys behind me, they had speed with me. This margin's not really true. It was just that I was able to get away on a restart, and then from there it's kind of hard to run people down.
Of course, it has been an incredible regular season campaign for you in 2019, but we have finally reached that point where it doesn't really matter. You'll get some bonus points, and we'll get the total as the standings reset going into next week for, of course, the race wins that you guys have gotten at this point, but it starts to get serious. And one point that we mentioned, talking about some of the other drivers in the field who used consistency to get their way into a playoff position. For you, it was all about the race wins, and you could take care of business next week, get the race win, go right on to the round of 12 to make it that easy. Is that the plan for Vegas?
I think my mindset changes when we get these playoffs. I try to reset. I try to just say, one person will get in the final four in points, and I want that to be me, not rely on wins, because a lot can happen, especially next week at Vegas. Earlier in the year we were on the old package, but this is a new package. You're going to have a lot of aero push, and it's going to be track positions key, so I don't know how confident I feel there. Go to Richmond, short track with the new tire there. I think confident there, and then the Roval, we'll see. I like road course racing, so it might be fun, but for me, it's just, try to get top 10, top 5s, and just move on with points.
I look forward to seeing what the open round of these playoffs have in store for us as you look for the goal of the 2019 championship. Andrew, we'll let you get out of here. Everybody else, though, you want to say hi to while you're down in Victory Lane at Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Yeah, I want to say hi to all the fans. I hope you've enjoyed the races so far this year. Tune in next week because it's going to get really good. It's playoff time. Congrats there to Jason and Thomas. Big thanks to Eric with his paint scheme. It came out really good. Dave Washington, he brought me on the team a long time ago. I always say it, but without him, I wouldn't even be here, wouldn't even be competitive. So big shout out to him, Shane Parrish, Daniel Everhart, Kyle Kammer, like I said, Eric Dillon, Sean Kalis, just everybody on Aegis. You guys for broadcasting, Brian for admitting, and my family for putting up with this hobby.
You know a thing or two about it as your race winner for the 11th time this year, Andrew. We bore you a lot because of those results. We're always appreciative of your time. Again, congratulations on the win tonight. And like we kind of alluded to at Darlington, I hope you enjoyed last week because it's going to be a long way now till November.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Race winner tonight from Indy. Continue it on down. Thomas George with a very good run in second position to close out the regular season. He's trackside with Justin.
Thank you very much, Evan Thomas. Strong run from you tonight, +4 from the drop of the green flag. How do you feel about how you did tonight to come away with the top 2? And of course, on top of that, being able to hold on while performing the undercut strategy to hold on to that second spot in front of Jacoby.
I felt like I did everything I absolutely could. I knew I had a faster car on the long run, and the undercut strategy, I kind of figured, well, the tires will equal out, and that's what they usually end up doing at these big flat tracks where they'll equal out, and you can kind of, as long as you take care of them, they'll be good towards the end. But that strategy, I just tried it because that battle I had, I think lap 36 or whatever, where I had to get the second, that it held me up so much getting by those guys, and Andrew was just able to check out. I kind of knew the only thing I could really do at that point, I felt like I was catching him at times, and then he would pull away again, and I would catch him back just a little bit, and I just knew that the only way I could win without a caution was just to do the undercut and see if he got a pit road penalty, which he didn't. So I felt like it's a good run overall, though. Can't complain about it.
Yeah, it looked really strong, especially with some of the aggression that we were seeing to try and fight for positions. Andrew had actually talked about some of the aero push being behind some of the lap cars, getting tight. And how was the aero push in your opinion? Because you were fighting a lot for position in the mid portion of this race.
Oh, the air push is absolutely awful. The car was very tight behind somebody in my book, and much tighter than I prefer it to be. Towards the end, it actually started getting loose just because the rubber was getting laid down. I'm just thinking, man, this all of a sudden feels good. I just don't have enough time or enough grip. So, it's the nature of Indianapolis. I'm sure it wasn't fun for the fans to watch as there was towards the end there, but I mean, that's just the nature of these big tracks. If you get a guy like Andrew who doesn't make any mistakes, and even if I'm able to go toe for toe with him tonight, if you get caught behind anybody, you have to get around them. You lose so much time, it's almost impossible to catch up. Pre this package or the current package anyway, so it don't matter how much horsepower you have or how much downforce. It's just Indianapolis. You can't really do anything about it.
I have to agree with you on that, especially with the tire wear here and the differences as the race goes on. But now the championship goes on. The round of 16 starts next week. You and your teammate Jonathan Goodell are going to be fighting for the 2019 title. What is your team's mindset heading into the first championship race at Las Vegas next week?
Myself, John, Red McBride, and Anthony Fredericks were all in the first round. We're just basically trying to survive, especially with Vegas, and this package is going to be. It just depends on how people treat that race. I think we raced it enough now to know how much you can get away with. We've raced around each other and mostly understand how people race. There's still some that don't quite understand spacing. I'm going to reference Darlington on that one where I wasn't too happy, but no, I mean, if you get spaced out, these cars do become drivers' cars again. The problem is it's just that first 5 to 10 laps, if there's no tire wear, and then everybody's just going to be on nose to tail, side by side, 20 on back. So it's a matter of just putting yourself in the right place at the right time, because I've seen some practice sessions already just, with 20 cars into turn one in under a second of each other, and it's just going to be pretty crazy.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go here tonight, Thomas?
Just all my teammates, all Steel Horse, all my sponsors. I haven't said to take the sponsor off the car yet. You guys are broadcasting, and all the admins and owners of this league for put on this show every week.
Congratulations on the second place finish, Thomas.
Thank you, Justin. Have a good night.
You too. That was Thomas George, who finished second. His team, Steel Horse Racing, as he mentioned, has multiple contingencies inside the championship, 4 to be precise, and was one of 3 teams, Evan, to score more than 1,000 points combined by the end of the regular season.
And he spearheaded the way for that effort. Let's continue on down to the pit lane with the driver of the number 3 machine tonight, Jason Jacoby, coming home in that exact position, finishing 3rd in this regular season finale. Jason, congratulations. I know every time you show up to the racetrack, you're looking for the race win, but it'll be a 13th top 5 as you guys are well and above, safely into the playoffs, and of course, keeping some momentum alive with a good run tonight.
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate it. I was definitely out there to have fun and hoping for the win, but huge congrats to Andrew and then Thomas on second. Once again, as with, I think that's the 11th time this season. Granted, I haven't finished in the top 3 all the times that Andrew's won, but as always, props to him for winning and just being an amazing wheelman.
So tell us about this race. We've heard some feedback. Obviously, guys complaining about how much the push is, getting around other cars, but you can get out of the throttle, and we did see some strategy come to play. Long run to the end. You had the better tires compared to Thomas late, and actually looked like you were almost going to catch up to him until you caught the wall there at the very end, trying to get that little bit extra. But you know what went into the strategy tonight, and how you guys feel you executed?
Well, I tell you what, I think... I guess I'm a little bit proud of myself because I hadn't run this track in months until I showed up for practice about 20 minutes before qualifying, and I really admire the fact that a lot of guys put in practice, some more than others, but it's just something I don't really have the drive and determination to do, is to just put in the laps, and you know, it's just something that I like. I guess I enjoy it more when I show up last minute, but you know, earlier in the season when Ashton Crowder raced with us a couple times, I was able to pick up his line at Chicagoland, and that helped me do what Andrew did tonight, which was check out. Tonight when Andrew got by me, I wasn't able to really catch his line. I was just kind of out there just trying to feel it out and just kind of ride, because when I show up to these things, most of the time I concede defeat to Andrew right away, you know, thinking he's probably going to get the win. But I'm really happy with a 3rd place. I didn't know what strategy would be like, you know, as far as how many laps you need to make before you pit, when it's a good time to change out tires, or what the fuel strategy was. I'm very lucky I caught a little bit of the actual Cup Series qualifying on Sunday, because until then I didn't even know that you go full throttle the whole way around the track. And so luckily in practice, I was able to run behind a couple cars for a couple laps and find out you did have to lift if you were in the draft. And I'm a big fan of anything NASCAR does, and supporting any change. And I think it was really cool that you could actually run Indy wide open, because coming into it, I just relied on my years of sim racing experience to try to get me around Indy, and it was a cool change to be able to run full throttle for a little bit all the way around the track. And thanks again to iRacing for providing an amazing sim where we can have fun and do stuff like this.
As we transition to the postseason, with 10 races left, in all honesty, it is a chase to catch that number 88 car. But in a world where Andrew Freitas doesn't exist, you're the guy to aim for. Second to most wins in the series, second to most top 5s, second to most top 10s. You've got a very good foundation under you. And listen, it comes down to Homestead. You get there, anything can happen, but what is the roadmap for you to get to that championship race starting next week with round of 16 in Las Vegas?
Oh boy, I think Las Vegas was when I made my entry into the season, into the series last season, and that went really well for me. And I kind of fell off of it a bit after that race, except when Dover came around, I had a good shot at it. But yeah, I think the thing is just to go out and try to keep up with Andrew, try to stay ahead if I can, and mainly just make. I love the close racing. I mean, I think when Andrew's gonna dominate these things, you got to make it fun, and that's I cost myself some spots earlier in that race when we were racing with Kyle and Thomas and Scott, Dylan and the guys, because it was just about close racing at that point. I love getting close to cars, getting close to walls, and the strategy is concede defeat to Andrew, but have fun while trying to race for second. But man, if I can luck out or get a win, I'd be really that'd be cool. Andrew's got to be off his game, and I got to be on mine for that to happen. But anyway, I think actually, no, realistically, I think I have a shot at some of these tracks. Some of these tracks I've had a better track record at, like Las Vegas coming up. So maybe something can happen and I can pull out a win. But in any case, good luck to all the racers this season, and thank you to you guys for bringing it to us. Thanks to everyone who tunes in and watches these things, and all my awesome sponsors for this thing, FEGPC.net, Seat Time Racing School, Carbon Racing Solutions, and Evan, thanks for your time, man.
I'll tell you what, I think my opinion's going to be a little bit biased, but I always love the race out in Vegas. So we look forward to that one next to Monday night. But Jason, again, thanks for your time. We appreciate you being a part of the series. Again, congratulations on the P3. Congrats on making it to the postseason, and we'll see what that 3 car's got.
We'll see what we can do at your hometown, Evan. Good night, guys.
He's third place tonight at Indianapolis. He'll head into the playoffs as well as seed number 3. That's Jason Jacoby, who rounds out your podium here tonight at IMS. Big thanks to him, to Thomas, and to Andrew. Let's look at our playoff grid, Justin. Andrew Friedage, we knew these drivers were in. There was no question there. Andrew Friedage, top of the list. He makes it in as the championship leader. Eric Stanford second, Jason Jacoby third, and we should note that this will reset. Points will be balanced based on wins, so the likes of Horn and Cadell are going to get bumped up, so will Dylan Jones, but at least in regular season finishing order, Jacoby third, George fourth, and Kamer fifth, Connor Horn P6, Jonathan Cadell seventh, Brian Chambliss eighth, Rhett McBride ninth, and Skylar Shackelford 10th, and then of course, continuing on through the rest of these drivers, you'll then have Jeremy Miller, Dylan Jones, Scott Brotherton, Scott McClendon, Andrew T. Jones, and Anthony Fredericks makes the cut, 3 points atop Jeremy Rittenberg and just 8 ahead of Shane Parrish, the 2 drivers who we expected, and I guess I should say suspected, didn't get enough at the end of this one, don't make the cut, and that is your 16-car grid.
And don't forget, those victories do count for the points heading in. Already looking at some of the stats for the reset here. The first driver with more than 1 win already in Jones had 2. 6-point advantage over guys like Brotherton, Chambliss, Fredericks. So that's going to help. Freenosh already nearly a full race advantage over guys like Jacoby and Horn. But there's a storyline to watch for, Evan, because Horn, as mentioned, does have some PC trouble, he mentioned. There's a chance, depending on how things work out, he might be in a win or done situation for the Roval. He's going to have to hope for the PC to come together. Hopefully that doesn't indeed be the case, because that would provide a lot of pressure for that third and final race of the round of 16.
And it would be a shame if it does come down to that, even if he can get the job done, because Connor Horn's been one of the better cars this year. But Andrew Friedage, 33 bonus points, up from that 1,000-point reset, so he is way ahead. Jason Jacoby, courtesy of 4 wins, has 1,012 points. Connor Horn has 1,009. You mentioned Jonathan Cadell and Dylan Jones, 2 wins apiece. They're at 1,006. But 6th place on back. They are all winless this year. Brotherton, Chambliss, Fredericks, George, Jones, Kamer, McBride, McClendon, Miller, Shackelford, and Stanford. Dead even. All those cars flatlined with each other at 1,000 points. So we are going to see 4 of those names eliminated after the opening 3 weeks. And as we've been talking about, Justin, it starts next week in Vegas.
And that race in Las Vegas is going to be absolutely crazy, because it was talked about by Andrew. It's going to be a completely different race, I think, at Las Vegas. Going to be similar to what we've seen, I think, at tracks like Kansas and so forth on those short runs. It's going to be absolutely hectic, and the drivers that end up being able to manage their tires in that point of the race, as well as find their way in the best track position, are going to come away with the checker flag. It might be a bit of a toss-up to see who's going to be able to come away with that win.
And we certainly hope you join us for that one. Until then, though, round number 23 has fallen into our rearview mirror. I want to say thanks on behalf of our entire team here at LSR TV, the folks behind the scenes, and for your broadcast team tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and our producer, Andy Chendeth, I want to thank you for tuning in. Encourage you to catch more action here on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network this Thursday, September the 12th, as the Recamo Tech Cup Series chase for the championship continues. That's at 9 o'clock Eastern Time start. But of course, we will be back next Monday. That is Monday, September the 16th, from Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the start of the playoffs. That race and every race of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, can be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from the Brickyard, where Andrew Freenage is tonight's race winner.